The ink on the marriage contract smelled like gunpowder. Cordelia's hands shook as she signed, not from fear, but rage. Across the mahogany table, Lysander Thorne sat motionless in his wheelchair. Dark glasses hiding eyes, they said, saw nothing. But when her father stumbled drunk from the room, those hidden eyes followed Theodore's every step. The pen felt heavy, too heavy, like signing away more than her name. Theodore Ashford had been a different man once. Cordelia remembered him in pressed suits commanding boardrooms, moving millions with a signature. Now he moved nothing but bottles. The tremor in his hand made the contract shake as he scrawled his name beside hers. The lawyer, a thin man with gray skin, slid the document toward Lysander. Marriage duration. The lawyer read, his voice flat as concrete. Until Mr. Ashford's debt of $4.7 million is satisfied in full. Cordelia's stomach turned. $4.7 million. Her father had gambled away empires and lost. Now he was gambling away her. She looked at Lysander Thorne, the man in the wheelchair, the blind billionaire, the recluse who hadn't been seen in public for 8 years. His face was all angles, sharp jaw, high cheekbones, lips pressed into a line that gave away nothing. The dark glasses reflected the chandelier above twin suns burning in black glass. "Is there anything else?" Theodore's voice cracked. He didn't look at Cordelia. Hadn't looked at her since they'd entered the room. "No," Lysander's voice was quiet, controlled. "We're finished here." Theodore stood too quickly. The chair scraped against marble. He walked to the door, footsteps uneven, and Cordelia felt something inside her chest crack clean through. Her father, the man who'd taught her to read financial reports at 12, who'd taken her to her first shareholder meeting at 14, who'd promised her the world. He was leaving her with a stranger. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the library like water rising. Cordelia sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, breathing through her nose. The lawyer gathered his papers with mechanical efficiency. He nodded once to Lysander and left without a word. Now it was just the two of them. Lysander sat in his wheelchair, hands resting on the armrests, head tilted slightly as if listening to something she couldn't hear. The room smelled like old books and older money, leather and lemon oil. Outside, rain began to tap against the windows. "You didn't have to do this," Cordelia said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Lysander's head turned toward her. "Not quite right. A blind man's approximation." "Your father made his choices," he said. "I'm simply collecting what's owed. By buying me, by marrying you." He shifted in the wheelchair. "There's a difference." "Is there?" For the first time, something that might have been amusement crossed his face. "The ceremony is tomorrow. I suggest you wear blue. It's your best color." Cordelia's breath stopped. Blue, her best color. How would a blind man know that? Before she could speak, Lysander reached for the wheels of his chair, but his hands didn't fumble, didn't search. They found the grips with perfect precision. He rolled himself toward the door, navigating around furniture, without hesitation, without error. At the threshold, he stopped. "Someone will show you to your room," he said without turning. "Dinner is at 8. Don't be late." Then he stood, rose from the wheelchair like a man who'd never needed it, smooth, effortless. He took off the dark glasses and turned to face her fully. His eyes were gray, pale and sharp as winter ice. And they looked directly into hers without searching, without wandering, without the slightest uncertainty. "Welcome to Thorne Manor, Cordelia." He walked out. Perfect posture, perfect stride. The door closed behind him with a sound like a cell locking. Cordelia sat alone in the library, heart hammering against her ribs. The marriage contract lay on the table, still wet with ink, still smelling like gunpowder. She'd just sold herself to a man who could see. The bedroom they gave her was larger than her entire apartment in the city. Tall windows overlooked grounds that stretched into darkness, manicured lawns giving way to forest. The bed was a 4-poster monstrosity draped in cream silk. Everything was perfect. Everything was cold. Cordelia stood at the window watching rain stream down the glass. Her reflection stared back at her, 20 years old, dark hair pinned too tight, wearing the same black dress she'd worn to her mother's funeral 3 years ago. It was the only formal thing she owned anymore. Theodore had sold everything else. A knock at the door. "Come in." A woman entered, 50s iron gray hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a housekeeper's uniform that looked like it cost more than Cordelia's monthly rent used to. "I'm Mrs. Halloway," the woman said. "I manage the household. Mr. Thorne asked me to ensure you have everything you need." "I need to leave." Mrs. Halloway's expression didn't change. "Dinner is at 8. I'll have something appropriate sent up." "I don't need," Mr. Thorne insists. The housekeeper's eyes were kind but immovable. "He's particular about certain things. She left before Cordelia could argue. 20 minutes later, another knock. Two younger women entered carrying garment bags and shoeboxes. They hung dresses in the closet, five of them, all in different shades of blue. Sapphire, navy, powder, cobalt, sky, her best color. The dresses fit perfectly. All of them. Size 4, the exact measurements of her body. Cordelia stood in front of the mirror wearing midnight blue silk that draped like water. The neckline was modest. The cut was elegant. The fabric whispered against her skin like a secret. Someone had known her size. Someone had chosen these specifically for her. How long had Lysander Thorne been watching dinner was served in a room designed to make people feel small? The dining table could have seated 20. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto mahogany so polished it reflected like black water. Cordelia sat at one end. Lysander sat at the other 15 feet away. He'd changed into a black suit, no tie, white shirt open at the collar. He looked like money and danger, and something else she couldn't name. "The dress suits you," he said. Cordelia said nothing. She cut into the salmon on her plate with surgical precision. The fish was perfect. The vegetables were perfect. The wine in her glass was probably older than she was. "You're angry," Lysander observed. "I'm trapped. You're safe. Those aren't the same thing." He smiled, actually smiled. It transformed his face from cold marble into something almost human. "No," he agreed, "they're not." A server appeared to refill her wine. Cordelia didn't look up. She was watching Lysander in her peripheral vision, watching the way he reached for his glass. No hesitation, no fumbling. His hand found the stem on the first try, lifted. It brought it to his lips with the easy confidence of someone who could see exactly where everything was. "You're not blind," she said quietly. The server froze. Lysander dismissed him with a small gesture. The young man disappeared like smoke. "No," Lysander said, "I'm not." "How long, I was never blind." Cordelia's fork clattered against her plate. "The accident, 8 years ago. The plane crash. The reports said what I needed them to say." He set down his wine glass. The base touched the table with barely a sound. "I survived the crash, I recovered, and I realized that being invisible had certain advantages." "You've been lying for 8 years." "I've been waiting for 8 years." The way he said it made her skin prickle. "Waiting for what?" "For you." The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. Cordelia stood chair scraping back. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, not a game." Lysander stood too. "Tomorrow we'll be married, legally bound. Then I'll tell you everything." He walked around the table toward her, each step measured, deliberate. "But I need you to choose this first. I need you to walk into that chapel and say yes." "Why, no?" "Because I want you to choose me before you know the truth." He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the gray of his eyes, the way they held hers without flinching. "What truth?" Cordelia whispered. "That I've been watching you for 8 years. That I know everything about you. Every habit, every fear, every moment you thought was private." His voice was soft, dangerous. "I know you, Cordelia Ashford. Better than anyone alive. And tomorrow when you say yes, you'll be mine forever." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "That's insane. That's honest. I could run. I could leave tonight." "You could." He didn't move. "The gates are open. No one will stop you, but you won't run." "How do you know?" "Because you're too curious." His lips curved, not quite a smile. "You want to know why. You want to understand how a man could watch you for 8 years. You want to see what I've built, what I've become, what all of this means." He was right. God help her, he was right. Cordelia lifted her chin. "I want to see it, whatever you're hiding. I want to see it tonight. Tomorrow. Tonight, or I walk out those gates right now, and you'll never see me again." They stared at each other across 3 feet of Persian carpet. Outside, thunder rolled across the estate. Rain hammered the windows. Lysander's expression shifted. Something like respect flickered behind the gray ice of his eyes. "All right," he said quietly. "Come with me." He led her through corridors she hadn't seen. Past rooms filled with furniture draped in white cloth. Past paintings worth fortunes. Up a narrow staircase that spiraled into darkness. Cordelia followed, heart-hammering hands clenched at her sides. At the top of the stairs, a door. Heavy oak. Bolted. Lysander produced a key from his pocket. Old brass. The lock turned with a sound like bones breaking. "This is the only room in the manor that's locked," he said. The only room I haven't let anyone enter in 8 years. Why are you showing me now? Because tomorrow you'll be my wife, and wives deserve honesty. He pushed the door open, even when honesty is monstrous. Cordelia stepped inside. The room was circular, a tower room. Windows on all sides showed nothing but rain and darkness. Candles burned in iron sconces, casting everything in golden shadow. But it was the walls that stopped her breathing. Every inch of them was covered in her. Paintings, dozens of them. Cordelia at 13 laughing at something off canvas. Cordelia at 15 reading in a park. Cordelia at 17 dancing at a gallery opening. At 18 walking through rain. At 19 crying alone in her apartment. Her face over and over, different ages, different moments, all of them captured with the precision of someone who'd studied every angle, every expression, every shade of emotion that crossed her features. Jesus Christ, Cordelia breathed. But there was more. A desk held objects arranged like museum pieces. A blue ribbon she'd lost when she was 14. A ticket stub from a movie she'd seen alone. A dried rose she'd thrown away after a bad date. Notebooks filled with handwriting she recognized as her own journals, she'd thrown out, somehow retrieved, preserved. And in the center of the room, a screen. Large, currently dark. What is that? Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Lysander walked to the screen, touched a button. It flickered to life. 4 camera feeds, all live, all showing her father's house from different angles. The living room, the kitchen, the bedroom that used to be hers. You've been watching me. Not a question, a statement. In my own home. Yes. For how long? 8 years. Cordelia turned to face him. He stood perfectly still, face unreadable, hands loose at his sides. Why? The word came out broken. Because I saw you once, he said, 8 years ago. At the Met Gala in New York. You were 13, wearing a white dress with blue ribbons in your hair. Someone bumped into a violinist and he dropped his instrument. Everyone gasped. Everyone looked horrified. Lysander's voice went distant. You laughed, just for a second, this bright, genuine laugh. Like watching someone fall was the most human thing you'd ever seen. He moved closer. I was 20. I just survived a plane crash that killed everyone else on board. I was numb, empty, waiting to feel anything. He stopped in front of her. Then I saw you laugh and I felt something. So I learned your name. I learned everything about you, and I kept watching, kept learning, kept waiting for you to grow up so I could have you. Cordelia's hands were shaking. That's not love. That's obsession. I know. You're telling me you built this shrine. You've been stalking me for 8 years, and tomorrow you want me to marry you. Yes. You're insane. Probably. He didn't look away. But I'm also the only person who truly sees you, Cordelia. Your father sold you because you were convenient. Your friends abandoned you when the money ran out. Evander Cross dated you for 3 years and never once asked what you actually wanted. His voice dropped. I've spent 8 years learning what you want, what you need, what you dream about when no one's watching. You had no right. I know. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek. I know everything I've done is wrong. I know I'm asking you to forgive the unforgivable, but I'm also offering you something no one else can. What? A partnership, real power, everything your father took from you. His thumb traced her jaw. Marry me tomorrow. Let me prove I can be more than this, more than the man who watched from shadows. Let me be the man who stands beside you in the light. Cordelia's mind spun. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get away from this man and his tower of obsession and his 8 years of watching. But she didn't run, because he was right about one thing. She was curious, desperately, dangerously curious about what kind of man could do this. What kind of man could love so wrongly? What kind of man could watch for 8 years and still have the restraint to wait? If I marry you, she said slowly, I want answers to everything. No more secrets. After the ceremony, I'll answer anything you ask. And I want control, real control, over my own life, over decisions, over this, whatever this becomes. Something shifted in his expression. Approval, relief, done. And if I decide to leave, if I decide this is too much, his hand fell away, then you leave. I won't stop you. You promise? I promise. She stared at him, at this man who'd built a tower to her image, who'd watched her grow up through cameras and stolen journals, who'd waited 8 years for a single conversation. It was insane, all of it. But standing here in this room of candles and paintings and impossible devotion, Cordelia Ashford made a choice. All right, she said, I'll marry you. The chapel was small, stone walls, stained glass windows that turned morning light into rivers of color. No guests, no music, just Mrs. Halloway and two other staff members as witnesses. Cordelia wore a dress the color of winter sky, simple, elegant, perfectly fitted. Lysander wore black, no wheelchair, no glasses. Just himself standing at the altar, watching her walk down the aisle with eyes that had never been blind. The minister was old. He spoke the words quickly, mechanically, asked them to repeat vows, asked them to exchange rings. The ring Lysander slid onto her finger was platinum, a single diamond cut to catch light from every angle. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. You may kiss the bride. Lysander's hands came up to frame her face. Gentle, almost reverent. His lips touched hers softly at first, then deeper, and Cordelia felt something in her chest crack open. Not quite surrender, not quite acceptance, something more dangerous. Curiosity mixed with recklessness, mixed with the strange certainty that she'd just changed her life forever. When he pulled back, his eyes held hers. Now, he said quietly, now I'll tell you everything. But they sat in his study. Large windows overlooked the grounds. Rain had stopped. Weak sunlight painted everything silver. Lysander poured scotch into 2 glasses, handed her one. Where do you want me to start? He asked. The beginning, 8 years ago, the plane crash. He nodded, sat across from her. I was 20, flying back from a business meeting in Seattle, private jet, 6 people on board, including me. He stared into his glass. Engine failure. We went down in the mountains. Everyone died. Everyone except me. The reports said you were injured, blinded. I was injured, broken ribs, collapsed lung, severe head trauma. He touched his temple. When I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't see. The doctor said it was trauma to the occipital lobe. They said I might never see again. But you recovered. 6 months later, vision came back gradually. First shapes, then colors, then details. He looked at her. By then, everyone thought I was blind. The press had moved on. People stopped watching me, and I realized something. What? I didn't want to go back. Didn't want to be Lysander Thorne, billionaire CEO under constant scrutiny. I wanted to disappear, start fresh, figure out who I was without the cameras and the expectations and the endless performance. So you stayed blind. So I stayed invisible. He drank. I hired people to run Thorne Industries, made decisions through intermediaries, became a ghost. And for 6 months, I was nobody. Just a man recovering in a manor upstate trying to figure out what to do with a second chance at life. Cordelia leaned forward. Then what happened? The Met Gala, my lawyer convinced me to make one public appearance, show everyone I was alive, raise morale for the company. His lips curved without humor. I hated every second until I saw you. I was 13. I know, it wasn't like that, not then. He set down his glass. You were just this kid in a white dress laughing at something everyone else found horrifying. And I thought that's it. That's what I've been missing. That honesty, that ability to find joy in small human moments. So you decided to watch me for 8 years. I decided to learn about the girl who could laugh like that. He stood, walked to the window. At first it was innocent. I looked you up, found out your name, your father, your school. I told myself I was just curious, just passing time. When did it change? Gradually, I started following your social media. Then I hired someone to take photos. Then I wanted more, needed more. He turned to face her. By the time you were 15, I was obsessed. I had cameras installed in your father's house. I collected things you'd touched. I painted you, over and over, trying to understand what it was about you that made me feel alive again. Cordelia's stomach turned. That's not normal. I know. That's stalking. That's criminal. I know. Then why are you telling me this? Because you asked for truth. He crossed to her, knelt in front of her chair so they were eye level. And because I need you to understand, I didn't choose this obsession. It chose me. After the crash, I was empty, hollow. You filled that hollow place. You gave me a reason to keep breathing. I didn't do anything. I was just living my life. Exactly. You were alive, fully, completely alive. And watching you taught me how to be alive too. His hands rested on the arms of her chair, caging her in without touching her. I know it's wrong. I know it's monstrous, but it's also the truth. And now you're here. Now you're mine. And I want to be better. For you. Cordelia looked into his eyes, gray, intense, burning with something that terrified and fascinated her in equal measure. "How did you get my father to agree to this?" she asked. "I bought his debts, all of them. 4.7 million in gambling losses, failed investments, personal loans." Lysander's voice went hard. "Then I called them in, all at once, gave him a choice, bankruptcy and ruin, or marry his daughter to me and walk away debt-free. You destroyed him. He destroyed himself. I just accelerated the timeline. And if I'd refused to marry you, then I would have waited, found another way, another opportunity." He smiled without warmth. "I've been patient for 8 years, Cordelia. I could have been patient longer." She wanted to be horrified, wanted to feel violated and trapped and desperate to escape. But instead, she felt something else, something darker. Because looking at this man, this broken, obsessive, brilliant man who'd built an empire while watching her grow up, she understood something. He'd given her a choice. He could have forced this, could have used her father's debts as leverage to demand anything, could have trapped her in a contract with no escape. Instead, he'd shown her the truth, shown her the tower room, shown her exactly what kind of monster he was, and then he'd asked her to choose. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now you decide what our marriage becomes." He stood, offered his hand. "I've told you everything. The obsession, the watching, the waiting. You know the worst of me, so you decide. Do we try to build something real, or do we live as strangers under the same roof until your father's debt is satisfied?" Cordelia looked at his hand, strong, steady, the hand of a man who'd watched her for 8 years but had never once tried to touch her without permission. She took it. "We try," she said. "We try to build something real, but you have to give me space. Time. You have to let me learn who you are beyond the watching." Done. And the cameras in my father's house. They're gone. They're already gone. I had them removed this morning. And no more secrets. If I ask you something, you tell me the truth. Always. She stood, still holding his hand. "Then show me. Show me how to run Thorn Industries. Show me what it means to have real power. Teach me everything you know." Something like wonder crossed his face. "You want to be partners." "I want to be equals." She met his eyes. "You said you've been watching me, learning me. Now it's my turn. I'm going to learn you. Every secret, every weakness, every piece of who you really are. And if you don't like what you find, then I'll decide if I can live well with it." She pulled her hand free, stepped back. "But until then, we're married. We're bound. So we might as well make the best of it." Lysander watched her with something that might have been admiration. "You're extraordinary." "I'm trapped. I'm making it bearable." "No," he shook his head. "You're choosing power over victimhood. That's not survival. That's strategy." For the first time since signing the contract, Cordelia smiled. Really smiled. "Then you'd better keep up," she said, "because I'm a very fast learner." The weeks that followed were strange. Cordelia woke in her enormous bedroom, ate breakfast with Lysander in the dining room, spent mornings learning the inner workings of Thorn Industries. 12 subsidiary companies, 800 million in assets, interests in defense technology, cybersecurity, and private military contracting. Lysander was patient, meticulous. He explained financial reports like they were stories, taught her to read between the lines of corporate maneuvering, showed her where power really lived, not in boardrooms but in information leverage timing. She learned he was brilliant, ruthless when necessary, capable of playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. She also learned he was lonely. At night, they ate dinner together. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they sat in silence. He never pushed, never demanded, never tried to cross the invisible line she'd drawn between them. But she caught him watching her, the way he'd watched for 8 years, except now there was no camera between them. Now she could watch him back. And slowly and possibly she began to understand. This man who'd built a tower to her image, who'd learned every detail of her life, who'd waited 80 years for a single conversation. He wasn't insane. He was just catastrophically, desperately alone. One night, 3 weeks after the wedding, Cordelia found him in the tower room. He was standing in front of the paintings, hands in his pockets, staring at a portrait of her at 16. "I'm going to take these down," he said without turning. "I should have done it already. They're too much." Cordelia stepped into the room, looked at the walls, at herself, repeated 47 times in oil and canvas. "Keep one," she said. He turned. "What?" "Keep one, whichever means the most to you. Take down the rest, but keep one, to remember where this started." "Why, mon frère?" "Because this is part of our story now." She walked to him, stood close enough to feel his warmth. The obsession, the watching, the 8 years. We can't pretend it didn't happen. So we acknowledge it. We keep one painting, one reminder that you were broken and I was the thing you used to put yourself back together. Lysander's eyes searched hers. You're not angry. I'm furious. She touched his chest, felt his heart hammering beneath expensive cotton. But I'm also here, and I'm choosing to stay. Not because I'm trapped, because I'm curious, because I think maybe you can become someone better than the man who built this room. I want to be. His hand covered hers. I want to be worthy of you. Then prove it, every day, with actions, not words. How could I? Give me control, real control. Let me run one of your companies. Give me actual authority and see what I do with it. He smiled then, slow and genuine. Which one do you want? Thorn Security, your private military contractor. His eyebrows rose. That's a $60 million company. I know. And it's been bleeding clients for 2 years because your managers are incompetent. I can fix it. How do you know it's bleeding clients? I read the reports you left on your desk. I'm a fast learner, remember? Lysander laughed. Actually laughed. The sound filled the tower room like light. It's yours, he said. Thorn Security, full authority. You report to no one but me. I report to no one, including you. He hesitated, then nodded. Done. Cordelia smiled, felt power settle into her bones like something she'd been missing her whole life. Then I'll start Monday. She turned to leave. His voice stopped her. Cordelia, she looked back. Thank you, he said quietly, for giving me a chance to be better. Don't thank me yet, she said. I'm still deciding if you deserve it. But as she walked down the spiral stairs, leaving him alone in his tower of obsession and oil paint, Cordelia Ashford felt something shift inside her chest. Not love, not yet, but maybe the beginning of understanding. And for now, that was enough. Monday morning arrived like a declaration of war. Cordelia stood in front of the mirror, buttoning a charcoal suit jacket that fit like armor. Her hair was pulled back severely. No softness, no decoration, just clean lines and sharp edges. She looked like power. Lysander appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand. He'd taken to bringing her coffee every morning. Black, no sugar, exactly how she liked it. Exactly how he'd known she liked it for 8 years. Ready, he asked. I've been ready my whole life. She took the coffee, sipped. Perfect temperature. I just didn't know it until now. He smiled. Thorn Security's offices are in Manhattan. The car's waiting. I'll drive myself. Cordelia. I'll drive myself, she repeated. If I'm running this company, I arrive on my own terms. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. The keys are on the table. Take the Aston Martin. It's bulletproof. Why would I need a bulletproof car? Because Thorn Security has enemies. He set down his own coffee. And now you do too. The drive to Manhattan took 2 hours. Cordelia spent them reviewing files on her tablet. Thorn Security employed 400 people, provided armed protection, cybersecurity, and tactical consultation to corporations, governments, and individuals who could afford discretion. Revenue had dropped 18% in 2 years. Client retention was abysmal. Employee turnover was worse. The problem was obvious. Management had grown complacent. They were coasting on the Thorn name instead of earning it. She was going to change that. The offices occupied 3 floors of a building in Midtown. Glass and steel, views that cost more than most people made in a year. Cordelia walked in wearing her armor and her wedding ring and the absolute certainty that she belonged here. The receptionist looked up. Young, nervous. Can I help you? I'm Cordelia Thorn. I'm here to see the executive team. The girl's eyes widened. Mrs. Thorn, we weren't expecting. I'll call Mr. Blackwell immediately. Don't bother. I'll find them myself. She walked past the desk, took the elevator to the executive floor, found a conference room full of men in expensive suits having what looked like a very relaxed meeting. Cordelia opened the door without knocking. 12 heads turned. 12 expressions shifted from confusion to condescension in the space of a heartbeat. Gentlemen, she said, I'm Cordelia Thorn. As of this morning, I'm running this company. You have 10 minutes to convince me why I shouldn't fire all of you. Silence. Then a man at the head of the table stood, tall, 50s, silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Thorn, what a surprise. I'm Silas Blackwell, Chief Operating Officer. He gestured to an empty chair. Please join us. We were just discussing quarterly projections. I've read your quarterly projections. They're garbage. Cordelia didn't sit. You've lost 43 clients in 18 months. Your best operatives are leaving for competitors. Your cybersecurity division is using software that's 3 years out of date. She crossed her arms. So here's what's going to happen. Each of you is going to tell me one concrete thing you're doing to fix this company. If I like what I hear, you keep your job. If I don't, you're gone by end of business today. Silas's smile tightened. With all due respect, Mrs. Thorne, this company has been operating successfully for 15 years. Perhaps it would be wise to learn how we do things before making drastic changes. With all due respect, Mr. Blackwell, I didn't ask for your opinion. I asked for solutions. She looked around the table. Who wants to go first? Nobody moved. Fine, I'll start with you. She pointed at a younger man, mid-30s, sweating. Name and position. Derek Mason, head of client relations. Why are clients leaving? We've had some communication issues. Specifics, he stammered. Cordelia cut him off. You're fired. Pack your desk. She turned to the next man. You. The meeting lasted 7 minutes. By the end, she'd fired 5 executives and put the rest on probationary notice. Silas Blackwell watched it all with the expression of a man swallowing glass. When the others had fled, he remained. That was quite a performance, he said softly. That was business. You should try it sometime. Mrs. Thorne. He stepped closer. I understand you're eager to make your mark, but Thorne security is more complicated than you realize. There are relationships, contracts, obligations that require delicate handling. Then handle them delicately, while also doing your job. Of course, but perhaps, he lowered his voice, perhaps it would be beneficial if we spoke privately. About your husband. Cordelia went very still. What about him? Lysander is brilliant, visionary, but he's also unwell. Silas's eyes were sympathetic, practiced. The accident 8 years ago changed him, made him paranoid, obsessive. Surely you've noticed. What I've noticed is that this company is failing under your leadership. Because Lysander's instability makes it impossible to maintain client confidence. They know he's erratic. They know he sees threats that don't exist. Silas moved closer. I've been protecting him, covering for his worst impulses. But now that you're here, perhaps we can work together, help him, get him the treatment he needs. Every word was smooth, reasonable, designed to sound like concern. Cordelia smiled. Mr. Blackwell, I think we're done here. Mrs. Thorne, please. I'm trying to help. You're trying to manipulate me. You think I'm some naive trophy wife who'll believe Lysander is crazy because you say so. She picked up her briefcase. Here's what's actually happening. You've been bleeding this company dry for years, skimming contracts, cutting corners, and you're terrified that I'm going to find out. His expression shifted. The sympathy vanished. Something cold took its place. You're making a mistake. No, you made the mistake by underestimating me. She walked to the door, stopped. You have until Friday to improve client retention by 10%. If you can't, you're fired. If you try to sabotage me, I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. She left him standing there, rage barely contained beneath expensive tailoring. Cordelia took the elevator down, walked to her car, sat behind the wheel for a full minute, hands shaking. Then she called Lysander. How did it go? He asked. I just made an enemy. Silas. He tried to convince me you're insane, that he's been protecting you, that I should help him get you treatment. Silence on the line. Then quietly, what did you say? I told him he had until Friday to fix his numbers or he's fired. Lysander laughed, low and genuine. God, you're magnificent. He's going to retaliate. Yes. You knew he would. That's why you gave me this company. You wanted to see what he'd do. Partially, I also wanted to see what you'd do. His voice warmed. You exceeded expectations. Lysander, she gripped the steering wheel. What is Silas really doing? What's he hiding? I don't know yet, but I've suspected for months that he's running a side operation, using Thorne's security resources for personal contracts. I need proof. Then let me find it. It's dangerous. If he realizes you're investigating, then he shouldn't have underestimated me. She started the car. I'll call you tonight. She hung up before he could argue. Cordelia spent the next 3 days buried in Thorne Security's financial records. She worked from the tower room. Lysander had cleared it out except for one painting, her at 16 laughing at something off camera. It hung above a new desk, a reminder of where they'd started. The numbers told a story, small discrepancies, contracts that didn't quite match invoices, payments to shell companies that existed only on paper. Silas was stealing, had been for at least 3 years. Small amounts at first, then larger, bolder. He'd gotten comfortable, but he'd also gotten sloppy. On Thursday afternoon, Cordelia found it. A series of emails between Silas and someone named V. Crane. They discussed contracts that weren't in Thorn Security's official records, discussed payments for specialized services, discussed eliminating problems. The most recent email made her blood run cold. The wife is a complication, handle it discreetly, make it look like an accident. Sent 3 days ago, the day after she threatened to fire him. Cordelia sat back, stared at the screen. Her hands weren't shaking now. They were perfectly steady. She picked up her phone, called Lysander. I found it, she said. Silas is running illegal contracts, wet work, assassinations, and he just put a hit out on me. Where are you? The tower room. Stay there, I'm coming home. Lysander, stay there. The line went dead. Cordelia looked at the painting above her desk. Herself at 16, young, innocent, unaware that in 4 years a man would watch her through cameras and fall into obsession. She wasn't that girl anymore. She forwarded the emails to her own secure server, printed copies, gathered evidence. When Lysander arrived 20 minutes later, she was ready. He burst into the room, security team behind him, saw her sitting calmly at the desk, stopped. You're all right. I'm fine, but we need to move fast. She handed him the printed emails. Silas has been running Black Ops contracts through Thorn Security for 3 years. Assassinations, kidnappings, corporate espionage. He's using our resources and pocketing the fees. Lysander scanned the documents. His expression went cold. Dangerous. How much? Conservatively, 15 million. And the hit on you, Aisha, sent to someone called V. Crane. No response yet, but it's only a matter of time. He looked up. We're going to the police. No. Cordelia, if we go to the police, this becomes public. Thorn Security's reputation gets destroyed. Clients abandon ship. 400 employees lose their jobs. She stood. We handle this privately. How? We turn it back on him. Use his own weapon. Lysander stared at her. You want to fake your death. I want to make him think the hit succeeded. Draw him out, get him to incriminate himself publicly. That's insane. That's justice. She moved closer. He tried to have me killed, Lysander. I'm not letting that stand, but I'm also not destroying everything you built because he's a criminal. So we do this smart. We make him expose himself. He searched her face. This is dangerous. I know. If something goes wrong, it won't, because you're going to help me. She touched his arm. You've been watching threats for 8 years. You know how to plan, how to anticipate? So plan this. Help me take him down. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded. All right, we do this together. They spent the next 2 days planning. Lysander called in favors, contacted people Cordelia didn't want to know about. Former military, intelligence operatives, people who understood how to make something look real. The plan was simple. Stage a car accident. Make it convincing. Let Silas think the hit succeeded, then watch what he did next. Friday afternoon, Cordelia drove the Aston Martin down a specific stretch of highway. Lysander followed in a second car, cameras mounted, recording everything. At exactly 3:47 p.m., the Aston Martin's tire blew. The car spun, flipped, rolled down an embankment in a spectacular display of twisted metal and shattered glass. Emergency services arrived within minutes, found the car empty, airbags deployed, blood on the steering wheel. No body. The news reported it within hours. Cordelia Thorne, wife of billionaire Lysander Thorne, presumed dead after single car accident. Search ongoing. Lysander gave a statement, devastated, barely holding together. The cameras loved it. Silas called that evening. Lysander, God, I just heard. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Lysander's voice was hollow. Perfect. I can't. I need to be alone. Of course, but if you need anything, I'll call. He hung up, looked at Cordelia, who was sitting across from him in the study, very much alive, wearing comfortable clothes and drinking wine. He bought it, Lysander said. Good, now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. The next morning, Silas called a meeting of Thorn Security's executive team. Lysander watched via hidden cameras Cordelia had installed 2 days earlier. Gentlemen, Siwa said, this is a tragedy. Mrs. Thorne's death is a terrible loss. He paused. But it's also an opportunity. Lysander is unstable. Grief will make him worse. I propose we take steps to protect this company. What kind of steps? Someone asked. Legal steps, medical steps. We petitioned to have him declared incompetent, temporarily, of course, just until he recovers. Silas's smile was sympathetic. I'll assume leadership in the interim, guide the company through this difficult time. That's a coup, another voice said. That's protection for all of us, for our employees, for our clients. Silas looked around the table. Lysander isn't well. He hasn't been well for years. This is our chance to save Thorn Security from his worst impulses. The room murmured, some agreement, some hesitation. Then a new voice spoke. Interesting theory, Silas, but I have a better one. Cordelia walked into the frame, alive, unharmed, wearing the same charcoal suit she'd worn to her first meeting. The room exploded, voices overlapping. Silas went white. Mrs. Thorne, but the accident was staged to see what you'd do. She placed a folder on the table. Want to guess what we found? I don't know what you're talking about. No, then let me enlighten you. She opened the folder. 3 years of illegal contracts, 15 million in embezzled funds, communication with known criminals, and my personal favorite, an email putting a hit out on me. She slid the papers across the table. You tried to have me killed, Silas. Then you tried to use my death to stage a coup. That's conspiracy to commit murder and corporate espionage. She smiled. How's that for unstable? Silas stood. This is absurd. Those documents are fabricated. The doors opened. Federal agents walked in. Silas Blackwell. The lead agent held up a badge. FBI, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder fraud in violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. They cuffed him while the executive team watched in stunned silence. Silas looked at Cordelia. Real hatred burned in his eyes. You stupid girl, you have no idea what you've done. I've cleaned up your mess. She turned to the agents. He's all yours. They took him out. The room remained frozen. Cordelia addressed the executives who remained. Here's what's going to happen. Each of you is going to be interviewed by federal investigators. You're going to cooperate fully. If you were involved in Silas's operations, you're going to confess now and take a plea deal. If you weren't involved, you're going to prove it. She looked around the table. Thorn Security's reputation depends on complete transparency. Anyone who can't handle that should leave now. Nobody moved. Good. Meeting adjourned. She walked out, found Lysander waiting in the hallway. That was extraordinary, he said quietly. That was necessary. She was shaking now, adrenaline crashing. Is it over? The FBI will want statements. The press will have questions. But yes, the immediate threat is over, she nodded, felt her knees weaken. Lysander caught her, pulled her against his chest, held her while she trembled. You were brilliant, he murmured. Terrifying and brilliant. I was scared. I know, but you did it anyway. He pulled back, looked at her. That's courage, Cordelia. Real courage. She met his eyes, gray and intense and full of something that made her chest tight. Thank you, she said, for trusting me, for letting me handle this. You didn't need my permission. You took what was yours and you defended it. His hand came up to cup her face. I'm in awe of you. The moment stretched. Cordelia felt the weight of the last week, the danger, the fear, the absolute certainty that she'd found something in herself she hadn't known existed. Power, real power, the kind that came from action, not permission. Take me home, she said. That night they sat in the study. Rain drummed against the windows. The fire crackled. Lysander poured scotch, handed her a glass. The FBI called. They found evidence linking Silas to 4 murders, corporate executives, whistleblowers, people who threatened his operation. He sat across from her. He's never getting out. Good. The board wants you to stay on. Run Thorn Security permanently. Cordelia sipped her drink. What do you want? I want you to do whatever makes you happy. She looked at him, this man who'd watched her for 8 years, who'd given her power when he could have kept her trapped, who'd trusted her to handle a threat that could have destroyed everything. I'll do it, she said, on one condition. Name it. You stop hiding. Stop pretending to be blind. Stop living like a ghost. She leaned forward. You gave me power. Now I'm giving you freedom. Come back to the world, Lysander. Let people see who you really are. He was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. All right, we'll do it together. Together, she agreed. They sat in comfortable silence. Outside, the storm intensified. Inside, warmth and light, and the strange peace of 2 people who'd survived something terrible and come out stronger. Cordelia thought about the tower room, the paintings, the 8 years of watching. It should have been horrifying. Should have been unforgivable. But it had also been the beginning. The strange, twisted beginning of something that was becoming real. Lysander, yes, thank you for showing me who I could be. He smiled. You were always this person. I just gave you the space to find her. Maybe that was true. Maybe she'd always had this strength buried beneath expectation and disappointment and the weight of being Theodore Ashford's daughter. Or maybe Lysander's obsession had unlocked something, given her permission to be ruthless and powerful and unapologetic. Either way, she wasn't the girl from the paintings anymore. She was Cordelia Thorne, and she was just getting started. 2 weeks later, Evander Cross showed up at Thorne Manor. Cordelia was in the garden when Mrs. Halloway announced him. She looked up from the roses she'd been inspecting, confused. I didn't invite him. He's quite insistent, says it's urgent. Cordelia sighed. Fine, show him to the terrace. She found Evander pacing, still handsome, still privileged, still wearing the expression of someone who'd never been told no. Evander, what are you doing here? He spun. Cordelia, thank God. I heard about the accident and I thought he saw her fully, alive, healthy. You're all right, obviously. The news said you were presumed dead. The news was premature. She crossed her arms. Why are you here? I wanted to. He ran a hand through his hair. I wanted to make sure you were okay. And to tell you that if you need help, if you need to leave, I can help you. Leave, him, Thorne. Everyone knows he's unstable, obsessed. The things I've heard, Evander stepped closer. You don't have to stay with him, Cordelia. You don't owe him anything. She stared at him, at this man she'd dated for 3 years, who'd taken her to expensive restaurants and society events, who'd never once asked what she wanted from life. Evander, you dated me for 3 years and never proposed, never asked me to move in, never even asked what I wanted to do with my future. Her voice was calm, clinical. Now I'm married to someone else and suddenly you care. I always cared. No, you cared about the idea of me, about what I represented. Theodore Ashford's daughter. Good breeding. Good connections. She smiled without warmth. You never cared about me. That's not fair. Lysander knows my coffee order, knows what I read when I'm anxious, knows how I take notes during meetings and what color I wear when I'm angry. She moved closer. He spent 8 years learning me. You spent 3 years dating me and never learned anything. Evander's face flushed. He's a stalker. He's sick. He's my husband, and he gave me something you never did. What power? The word hung in the air like a blade. I run a $60 million company now, Cordelia continued. I just took down a corrupt executive and saved 400 jobs. I make decisions that affect lives and markets and futures. She tilted her head. What do you do, Evander, besides live off your trust fund and judge other people's marriages? He recoiled. I came here to help you. No, you came here to feel superior, to play hero, to validate your ego by rescuing me from the man you think is beneath you. She pointed to the door. I don't need rescuing. I don't need you, so leave. Cordelia, leave before I call security and have you removed. He stared at her, this woman who looked like the girl he'd dated but moved like someone entirely different. Someone harder, sharper, someone who didn't need him at all. You've changed, he said quietly. Yes, I have. He left without another word. Cordelia stood on the terrace watching his car disappear down the drive. She felt nothing, no regret, no second thoughts, just the absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. That was brutal. She turned. Lysander stood in the doorway leaning against the frame. You were listening. I was protecting you. There's a difference, Ramon. She walked to him, stopped close enough to see the gray of his eyes. I didn't need protecting. I know, but old habits. He smiled slightly. You handled him perfectly. He thought I needed saving. Most people will think that. A young woman married to an older man with a complicated past. His hand came up to brush her cheek. They won't understand that you chose this, that you have power here. You run my second largest company. You exposed a criminal conspiracy. You just eviscerated your ex-boyfriend with 6 sentences. His thumb traced her jaw. You have more power than most people dream of. She leaned into his touch. Is that why you married me, for my power? I married you because I couldn't imagine a world where you weren't mine. He pulled back. The power was always yours. I just gave you the space to claim it. Cordelia looked at this man. This strange, broken, brilliant man who'd loved her from shadows and then stepped into light. Lysander, yes, kiss me. His eyes widened. In 6 weeks of marriage, they'd kissed once. At the altar, a brief formal touch. This was different. This was choice. He stepped closer. Slowly, giving her time to change her mind, his hands framed her face gentle despite the hunger in his eyes. Are you sure? Yes. He kissed her. Soft at first, then deeper. 8 years of wanting poured into one moment. Cordelia felt it, the obsession, the devotion, the terrifying intensity of being loved by someone who'd watched her become herself. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered. I've loved you for 8 years. I'll love you for 80 more. Cordelia's heart hammered. She wasn't ready to say it back, wasn't sure what she felt beyond fascination and power and the strange pull of being known so completely. But she could give him truth. I'm not there yet, she said, but I'm getting closer. He smiled. That's enough. And standing there on the terrace, rain beginning to fall, Cordelia Thorne felt something shift inside her chest. Not love, not quite, but maybe the beginning of it. And for now, for this moment, that was more than enough. 2 years had passed since the wedding, 2 years since the tower room, 2 years since Cordelia had learned that the man she married could see everything. She stood in the bathroom of their bedroom now, not hers, staring at the plastic stick in her hand. 2 pink lines, clear, undeniable, pregnant. Her hand shook, not from fear, from the weight of what this meant. She'd spent 2 years building Thorne Security into something formidable. Revenue up 40%, client retention at 93%. She'd hired based on merit, fired based on incompetence, and turned a failing company into an industry leader. She'd also spent 2 years learning to live with Lysander, learning his rhythms, his silences, the way he still watched her sometimes like she might disappear, the way he'd slowly, carefully learned to give her space. They'd become partners, real partners. She ran security, he ran technology. Together, they'd expanded Thorne Industries into new markets, new territories, new possibilities. And somewhere in those 2 years, she'd fallen in love with him. It had happened gradually, 1,000 small moments. The way he brought her coffee every morning, the way he listened when she talked about work, the way he'd hold her at night, arms wrapped around her like she was something precious and breakable, even though they both knew she was neither. Now this, a baby. Cordelia set down the test, washed her hands, looked at herself in the mirror. She was 22. He was 30. They had power, money, success. But did they have this? Could a man who'd watched her for 8 years before meeting her be a good father? Could a woman who'd learned to wield power like a weapon be a good mother? She didn't know, but she was going to find out. Lysander was in his study when she found him. He looked up from his laptop, smiled the way he always did when she entered a room, like she was light breaking through clouds. You're home early. I have news. She closed the door, stood in front of his desk. I'm pregnant. His expression went blank, then shifted through a dozen emotions too fast to name. Shock, joy, fear, wonder. You're certain? 3 tests, all positive. He stood, walked around the desk, stopped in front of her. How do you feel? His voice was careful, controlled, terrified. Because of me. It wasn't a question. Cordelia met his eyes. Because of us. Because we're not normal, Lysander. Our marriage started with obsession and surveillance and a tower full of paintings. She touched his chest, felt his heart racing. What if we break this child the way we were broken? We won't. How do you know? Because we know what broken looks like. We know what damage feels like. We'll do better. His hands covered hers. I'll do better. You already are better. You don't watch me anymore. You don't control. You don't. I still want to. The confession came out quiet, honest. Every day I want to know where you are, what you're doing, who you're talking to. The impulse doesn't go away, Cordelia. I just choose not to act on it. She knew that, had always known it. The obsession hadn't disappeared. It had just been channeled, redirected into partnership instead of possession. Will you be able to do that with our child? She asked. Let them have privacy. Let them make mistakes. Let them be their own person. Lysander was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled back, walked to the window, stared out at the grounds. I don't know, he said finally. I want to say yes. I want to promise you it'll be perfect. But I've spent 8 years learning not to lie to you. He turned. The truth is, I'm going to struggle. I'm going to want to protect them from everything, control their environment, make sure nothing can hurt them. That's not healthy. I know. So I'll need you to stop me, to remind me, to tell me when I'm crossing lines. His jaw tightened. I'll need you to save me from myself again. Cordelia walked to him, took his face in her hands. Then we do this together. We check each other. We keep each other honest. We build something better than what we had. She kissed him softly. We give this child what we never got. Parents who choose to be better every single day. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. I'm terrified too, he whispered, of failing you, failing them, becoming the monster everyone thinks I am. You're not a monster. You're just a man who loved wrong and learned to love right. She pulled back, smiled. And now you're going to be a father. His hand came to rest on her stomach. Still flat, still unchanged, but holding something that would transform everything. Twins, he said suddenly. What? I think it's twins. Twins run in your mother's family. 3 sets in the last 4 generations. Cordelia stared at him. How do you know about my mother's family? He had the grace to look embarrassed. I might have researched your entire genealogy going back 7 generations. Of course you did, she laughed. Couldn't help it. God, you're insane. But you love me anyway. Against all reason and logic, yes, I do. It was the first time she'd said it, the first time she'd spoken the words out loud. Lysander's eyes went bright. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Lysander Thorne. Obsessive, controlling, brilliant, impossible man. She kissed him. I love you. He kissed her back, deep and desperate and full of 8 years of waiting. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. Thank you, he whispered, for choosing me, for staying, for giving me a chance to be worthy of you. You are worthy. You've been worthy since the day you showed me the truth instead of hiding it. I'm going to be a good father. I know. I'm going to make mistakes. I know that too. We both will, but we'll fix them together. They stood there wrapped in each other while the sun set outside and the future stretched ahead of them, uncertain and terrifying and full of possibility. 3 months later, the ultrasound confirmed it. Twins, 2 boys, healthy, perfect. Cordelia lay on the examination table watching the screen, watching 2 tiny hearts beating in synchrony. Lysander held her hands so tight it hurt. They're beautiful, he said. They're the size of lemons. Beautiful lemons. The doctor smiled, printed pictures, gave them information about nutrition and exercise and what to expect. Outside in the parking lot, Lysander stopped, turned to Cordelia. I want to tell people about us, about the truth. She frowned. What truth? That I was never blind, that I lied for 8 years, that our marriage started because I was obsessed with you. He looked at the ultrasound pictures in his hand. I want our sons to grow up knowing their parents chose honesty, even when it's ugly. That will destroy your reputation. I don't care about my reputation. I care about being honest with you, with them, with the world. He touched her face. I'm done hiding. I want to stand beside you in the light. Cordelia searched his eyes, saw determination, saw fear, saw love. All right, she said, we do it together. They held a press conference 3 days later. Major networks, financial press, industry publications. The room was packed. Lysander stood at the podium. Cordelia sat beside him, visible, present, united. Thank you for coming, he began. I have a statement to make regarding my condition and my marriage. The room went silent. 8 years ago, I survived a plane crash. The initial reports stated I was blind. Those reports were accurate for 6 months. Then my vision returned. He paused. I chose not to correct the public record. I chose to remain blind because I wanted privacy, distance, the freedom to disappear from public scrutiny. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. During those 8 years, I met my wife, Cordelia. Our marriage was arranged to settle a debt between myself and her father, but it was also my choice. I pursued her deliberately. I wanted her specifically. He looked at Cordelia. And I want to be clear, she married me knowing the truth. She chose this. She chose me, despite everything. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Thorne, are you saying you lied about being blind for 8 years? Yes. Why come forward now? Because my wife is pregnant, because we're having twins, and because I want my sons to grow up knowing their father values honesty over reputation. He straightened. I lied to protect myself. I'm telling the truth to protect them. Another reporter. Mrs. Thorne, did you know about this deception when you married him? Cordelia leaned forward to the microphone. Yes, my husband told me the truth on our wedding night. I chose to stay. I chose to build a life with him. And I'd make the same choice today. Why? Because he gave me something no one else ever did. He gave me power, real power, the opportunity to lead, to build, to become more than Theodore Ashford's daughter. She smiled. He saw me, not what I could be, not what I should be, what I actually was, and he gave me the space to become myself. But he stalked you. He watched me, obsessively, for years before we met. Cordelia's voice didn't waver. I'm not going to pretend that's normal or healthy. It's not. But it's also not the whole story. He could have used that information to control me, to manipulate me. Instead, he gave me autonomy, gave me authority, gave me the choice to stay or leave. So you're saying the obsession was acceptable? I'm saying it was the beginning, not the end. People aren't defined by their worst moment. They're defined by what they do after, how they choose to be better. She looked at Lysander. My husband chose to be better, every day, and that's why I love him. The press conference lasted 30 minutes. Questions about the company, about their marriage, about the twins. Through it all, Lysander and Cordelia presented a united front. Honest, unapologetic, refusing to be ashamed of how they'd started because they were proud of what they'd become. When it ended, they walked out together, ignored the shouted questions, got into their car. That was intense, Cordelia said. That was necessary. Lysander started the engine. The backlash will be significant. I know. Some people will never forgive me, will never accept us. I know that too. She took his hand. But our sons will grow up knowing their parents chose truth over comfort. That's worth more than reputation. He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. Thank you for standing beside me. Always. The backlash came swiftly. Stock prices dipped. Some clients canceled contracts. The press ran stories about obsession, stalking, manipulation. Cordelia received messages from women's advocacy groups, offering help, offering to rescue her, insisting she was brainwashed. She responded to each one personally. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not a victim. I'm a woman who made a choice with full information. I ask that you respect my agency and my decision. Most didn't respond. Some sent angry replies. A few apologized. Through it all, Cordelia kept working, kept running Thorne Security, kept proving that she was exactly who she said she was, a woman with power using it on her own terms. 3 months later, Theodore Ashford died. The call came at 2 a.m. Liver failure. Years of drinking finally caught up with him. Cordelia sat in bed, phone in hand, feeling nothing, then everything, then nothing again. I need to go, she told Lysander, to the funeral. I'll come with you. No, she touched his face. This is something I need to do alone, to close that chapter. He nodded, understood. The funeral was small, held in a chapel Theodore couldn't have afforded while alive. Cordelia paid for everything, the casket, the flowers, the burial plot. Her mother Lillian was there, gray and thin and worn down by years of standing beside a man who'd destroyed everything he touched. Thank you for coming, Lillian said quietly. He was my father, despite everything. Her sister Sophie approached, 2 years older, bitter, resentful. Nice of you to show up, between running your company and playing house with your stalker husband. Sophie? Don't. You abandoned us, married that freak, got everything while we got nothing. Cordelia looked at her sister, saw the pain, the jealousy, the inability to see past her own suffering. I didn't abandon you. Dad sold me. There's a difference. She kept her voice calm. And I didn't get everything. I built everything. From a marriage I didn't choose into a life I did. With what? We have nothing. You have the same thing I started with, a choice. Cordelia pulled out a business card, wrote a number on the back. This is my personal accountant. Call her. She'll help you set up a trust fund. 500,000, enough to start over, to build something. Sophie stared at the card. Why? Because you're my sister, because Dad failed you too, because I can help, so I will. She pressed the card into Sophie's hand. But this is it. Use it or waste it. Your choice. But don't come back asking for more. She walked away before Sophie could respond. At the graveside, Cordelia stood alone while they lowered Theodore into the ground. She thought about the man he'd been, the father who'd taught her to read financial reports, who'd taken her to meetings, who'd promised her the world. Then she thought about the man he'd become. Weak, desperate, willing to sell his daughter for chips and cards. I forgive you, she whispered. Not because you deserve it, because I need to let go. She placed a single white rose on the casket, turned, walked away, didn't look back. 5 months later, on a Tuesday morning in October, Cordelia went into labor. Lysander drove her to the hospital, knuckles white on the steering wheel. She'd never seen him lose composure before. Breathe, she said. I am breathing. I meant for yourself. He laughed, shaky, nervous. I'm terrified. Good, so am I. They held hands through check-in, through the slow progression to the delivery room. 14 hours later, at 3:47 a.m., their sons were born. Lucas came first, 6 pounds, 4 ounces, screaming his rage at the world. Owen followed 2 minutes later, 6 pounds even, quiet, observing. Cordelia held them both, one in each arm, and felt her heart crack open in ways she hadn't known were possible. They're perfect, Lysander whispered. He was crying, actually crying. They're absolutely perfect. They're ours. Ours, he agreed. For the first few weeks, Lysander was perfect. Attentive but not controlling. Helpful but not hovering. But Cordelia watched him, saw the way his jaw tightened when they cried, the way he checked on them obsessively, the way he started researching baby monitors with surveillance capabilities. Lysander, she said one night, finding him looking at camera systems. No, they need to be safe. They need privacy. They need trust. She closed his laptop. I know you're scared. I am too. But we can't raise them in a tower room. He flinched. I would never. Not physically, but emotionally if you watch their every move. She took his hands. That's control disguised as protection. What if something happens? Then something happens, and we deal with it. Together. She squeezed his hands. You have to trust that they'll be okay. That the world isn't a threat you need to monitor constantly. I don't know how to do that. Then we learn, together. She kissed him. That's what love is. Not control, not surveillance. Trust. He nodded, closed the laptop, pushed it away. You're right, I'm sorry. Don't apologize, just keep choosing better. And he did. 2 years passed, then 5, then 10. The twins grew. Lucas was loud and fearless. Owen was quiet and thoughtful. They were different in every way, but they were loved. Cordelia and Lysander had 2 more children. Emma when the twins were 3. Noah when Emma was 2. The tower room became a library, filled with books and light. Only one painting remained. Cordelia at 16, a reminder of where they'd started. Thorne Industries expanded. Together they built an empire worth billions. But more importantly, they built a family. On their 17th wedding anniversary, Lysander took Cordelia back to the tower. I have something for you, he said. He handed her a box, inside 47 letters, all addressed to him, all in her handwriting. What are these? She'd asked. Open one. She unfolded the first, dated 6 months after their wedding. Dear Lysander, I'm still angry about the cameras, about the watching, about the 8 years you stole from me. But I'm also grateful, because you showed me who I could become. You gave me power when the world told me I was powerless. I don't know if I love you yet, but I'm learning to, and that terrifies me more than anything else. Say, Cordelia's throat tightened. I never sent these. I know. I found them in your desk drawer 5 years ago. I've been keeping them. He smiled. Read the last one. She opened the letter dated 1 week ago. Dear Lysander, 17 years ago you watched me from shadows. 8 years before that you saw me laugh and decided I was worth waiting for. Today I watched you teach Owen to ride a bike. Watched you braid Emma's hair. Watched you read to Noah before bed. And I thought this is what love looks like. Not obsession, not control. Just showing up. Every day. Choosing to be better than yesterday. You've given me everything. Power, partnership, family. But the greatest gift was showing me that people can change. That love can grow from the darkest soil. That we're not defined by how we start, but how we choose to continue. I love you, not despite the 8 years, because of everything that came after. Because you proved that love isn't about possession. It's about partnership. Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for becoming worthy of that wait. And thank you for letting me become who I was always meant to be. Forever yours, Cordelia. She looked up. Lysander was watching her with those gray eyes that had once watched through cameras and now watched with nothing but love. When did you read this? She whispered. This morning, while you were sleeping. He took her hands. I wanted to tell you something. What? I waited 8 years for you. I've lived 17 years with you. And if I had to do it all again, knowing everything, the obsession, the pain, the mistakes, I'd still choose you. Every time, in every life. Cordelia's eyes burned, even knowing what it cost. Especially knowing what it cost. Because look what we built. Look what we became. He gestured to the window. Below, their children played in the garden. We took something broken and made it beautiful. We're still broken. Maybe, but we're broken together, and that makes all the difference. She kissed him, soft and deep and full of 17 years of choosing each other. When they broke apart, she rested her head against his chest, listened to his heartbeat. Steady, strong. I love you, she said, for all of it. The watching, the waiting, the learning to be better. I love you too. You're my masterpiece, Cordelia. Not the paintings, not the watching, you, the woman you became, the partner you chose to be. Yet they stood together in the tower that had once held obsession and now held only light. This was their legacy. Not the billions, not the power. This, family, love, the choice to be better every single day. Come on, Lysander said. Our family's waiting. They walked down the spiral stairs together, stepped out into afternoon sunlight where their children played. Lucas and Emma were doing cartwheels. Owen was reading to Noah under a tree. Their children looked up, smiled, ran to them. And Cordelia Thorne, who'd been sold at 20, who'd married a man who'd watched her for 8 years, who'd learned to wield power like a weapon and love like a choice, opened her arms and let her family crash into her. This was happiness, messy, complicated, built from darkness into light. This was love, not the fairy tale kind, the real kind, the kind that required work and honesty and courage. This was their life, and it was perfect. Not because it was easy, but because they'd earned it. Together.